I was 28 years old when I learned that being born female meant I wasn't entitled to my own father's love, his respect, or apparently his money. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I remember because I was in the middle of a presentation at work, my phone buzzing insistently against the conference table. I ignored it the first 3 times. The fourth time, I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. Miss Chun. The voice was professional, clipped. This is Margaret Holloway from Silverman and Associates. I'm calling regarding your father's estate. We need you to come to our office as soon as possible. My father had died 6 weeks earlier. Massive heart attack. One moment, he was yelling at my brother about something trivial. The next, he was on the floor. I'd cried for 3 days straight, then dried my tears and went back to work because that's what you do. That's what I'd always done. The funeral had been a circus. My mother, dressed in black like a professional mourner, had clung to my brother David's arm the entire time. My younger brother Michael stood on her other side, looking appropriately somber. I stood alone, 3 feet away, as if there were an invisible wall between us. No one had said anything about the will. No one had said anything about inheritance. In our family, we didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about a lot of things. I arrived at the law office at 4:30 that afternoon. The receptionist led me to a conference room with too much wood paneling and not enough windows. Margaret Holloway was already there, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. Miss Chun, thank you for coming. She gestured to a chair. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. I sat down, my purse in my lap like a shield. Your call sounded urgent. Yes, well. She opened a folder in front of her. There's been a situation with your father's estate. I've been trying to reach your family for the past week, but no one has returned my calls. I finally tracked down your work number. A situation? Your father's will was very clear. He left specific instructions about how his assets were to be divided. She pulled out several stapled documents. The primary residence was to go to your mother, of course. But his investment accounts, his retirement funds, and his business assets were to be split equally among his 3 children. That's you, David, and Michael. I nodded slowly. Dad had built a successful construction company from nothing. He'd worked 16-hour days for 30 years, missed birthdays and holidays, sacrificed everything to build something substantial. I'd assumed most of it would go to David, who'd worked alongside him for the past 8 years. However, Margaret continued, her voice taking on an edge, 6 days after your father's death, your mother came to this office with your brothers. She presented a different will, a handwritten document, dated 3 days before your father's death, leaving everything to your mother and dividing it between your 2 brothers upon her death. You weren't mentioned at all. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? We've been conducting an investigation. The signature appears legitimate, but the circumstances are highly suspicious. Your father was in intensive care 3 days before his death. According to hospital records, he was heavily medicated and barely conscious. I don't believe he wrote this document. My hands were shaking. My mother did this. I can't speculate about that. But here's where it gets complicated. She slid another paper across the table. Your brothers have already begun liquidating assets. They've withdrawn funds from several accounts, sold stock, and transferred money. When we discovered the discrepancy and filed an injunction, the bank froze everything. All of your father's accounts are currently locked pending investigation. How much did they take? Approximately $1.3 million. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. Miss Chun, I need you to understand something. Your brothers and your mother could face criminal charges for this. Fraud, forgery, potentially elder abuse if we can prove your father was coerced. But that's a long legal process. Right now, I need to know, do you want to contest the false will? Yes. The word came out stronger than I felt. Yes, I want to contest it. Then we have a fight ahead of us. I drove home in a daze. My apartment felt too small, too quiet. I made tea I didn't drink and stared at my phone for an hour before I finally called my mother. She answered on the 5th ring. Way. Mom, I need to talk to you about Dad's will. Silence. Then, There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. You forged a will. You and David and Michael have been stealing money. Stealing. Her voice went shrill. You dare accuse your own family of stealing? Your father's money belongs to this family. To his sons. To the people who supported him, who worked beside him. I'm his daughter. I'm his child, too. You're a woman, she spat, and I heard decades of bitterness in those 3 words. You'll get married. Your husband's family will take care of you. This money needs to stay in the Chun family, with the Chun sons who will carry on the family name. Your father understood this. Dad left me money in his real will. That lawyer is lying to you. Your father wrote a new will before he died. He told me himself that he couldn't leave family money to a daughter. It wouldn't be right. Your brothers need that money. David is trying to buy a house. Michael is getting married. And I don't matter at all? Don't be dramatic, Wei. We raised you, fed you, sent you to school. We've done our duty. The rest is for your brothers. This is how it should be. This is tradition. This is theft. She hung up on me. I sat on my couch and cried for the first time since the funeral. Not gentle tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. I cried for my father, who'd been distant and demanding but who'd apparently wanted me to have something in the end. I cried for the childhood where I'd always come second, where my brother's accomplishments were celebrated while mine were expected. I cried for the family dinners where I served while my brothers sat, where I cleaned while they relaxed. And then I stopped crying and got angry. The next morning, I called Margaret Holloway and told her I wanted to pursue every legal option available. She scheduled a meeting with a forensics expert who could analyze the fake will. I requested time off work and began gathering documentation, every email, every text message, every piece of evidence I could find. I also called my brother David. Wei. He sounded surprised. We hadn't spoken since the funeral. We need to talk about what you did. Look, Mom told us you were upset, but you need to understand. I understand that you stole over $1 million from Dad's estate. I understand that you forged his signature while he was dying. I understand that you looked at me at his funeral, knowing what you were about to do, and said nothing. It's not like that. Dad wanted us to have the company, the money. He told us 1,000 times that the business had to stay with the sons. You have a job, you have your own life. He left me money in his will, David. His real will. The one he actually signed when he was healthy and coherent. That will was old. He changed his mind. No, you and Mom changed his will. And now the bank has frozen everything and you're all under investigation. Did you really think no one would notice? His voice went cold. You're going to destroy this family over money? You already destroyed it. I hung up before he could respond. The next few weeks were brutal. Margaret filed a formal challenge to the fraudulent will. The investigation intensified. A handwriting expert confirmed that while the signature looked legitimate, the writing showed signs of a guided hand. Someone had been holding my father's hand, moving it across the page. Hospital staff remembered my mother and brothers visiting late at night, insisting on privacy, closing the door. My mother called me 17 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that progressed from angry to pleading to threatening. Michael sent me a text that said simply, "You're dead to us." I never felt more alone in my life. But I also felt something else. Clarity. For the first time, I saw my family for what it really was. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn their approval, working twice as hard as my brothers, excelling in school while they barely graduated, being respectful and obedient, and everything a good Chinese daughter should be. And none of it had mattered. I would always be less than. I would always be just a daughter. 3 weeks into the investigation, David called me. "We need to settle this," he said without preamble. "This is getting out of hand. The lawyers are costing everyone money. The accounts are frozen. Mom is having panic attacks." Good. Wei, come on. Be reasonable. What if we give you some money? Not the full third, but something fair. We can all walk away from this. How much? 100,000. I laughed, a harsh sound. You stole 1.3 million and you're offering me 100,000? It's more than you're entitled to. You know how Dad felt about women and inheritance. I know how you and Mom felt. I'm starting to think Dad actually cared more than any of you gave him credit for. 200,000. Final offer. I'll see you in court. I hung up and immediately called Margaret. They're trying to settle. Of course they are. The forensic evidence is damning. They know they're going to lose, and they're scared about the criminal charges. She paused. What do you want to do? I want what's mine. Every penny of my third. And I want them to face consequences. That could take time. Could take years. I have time. But I was lying. The stress was killing me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I kept thinking about my father in that hospital bed, drugged and dying, my mother guiding his hand across a piece of paper while my brothers stood guard at the door. I thought about how they'd looked at me during the funeral, knowing what they'd done. I thought about my entire life. Every moment I'd been overlooked, dismissed, treated as less than. 2 months after my father's death, I got another call from Margaret. We have a problem, she said. Your mother just filed for bankruptcy. What? She's claiming that your father left massive debts, that the estate is insolvent, that there's nothing to inherit. She's trying to shield the money your brothers already took by claiming it was used to pay off creditors. But that's
fraud. Yes.
And incredibly stupid because we have documentation of every transfer. But it's going to complicate things. She's essentially trying to burn everything down rather than let you have your share. I sat down slowly. She hates me that much? This isn't about you, Wei. This is about a woman who was raised to believe that family money goes to sons. Always, no exceptions. She genuinely believes she's doing the right thing. That makes her dangerous. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and I made a decision. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about every daughter who'd ever been told she wasn't enough, who'd been passed over, ignored, diminished. This was about breaking something that should have been broken a long time ago. I called Margaret in the morning. I want to go nuclear. Every charge, every option, everything. I don't care how long it takes. Wei, you need to think about this. I have thought about it. They want to destroy the estate rather than let me have anything?
Fine.
Then everyone loses. But they're going to face consequences. Real ones. Okay, Margaret said quietly. Then let's get to work. The next 6 months were a legal war. Margaret subpoenaed bank records, medical records, security footage from the hospital. She deposed nurses, doctors, anyone who'd been near my father in his final days. She built a case that was ironclad and devastating. My mother's bankruptcy claim fell apart within weeks. The court found clear evidence that she'd hidden assets, that the debt claims were fabricated, that she'd committed multiple acts of fraud. David and Michael were forced to return the money they'd taken, plus penalties and interest. But the real blow came when the district attorney got involved. Criminal charges? My mother's voice on her lawyer's speakerphone was panicked. I was sitting in Margaret's office, listening to the settlement negotiation. They can't press criminal charges. I'm a widow. I'm an old woman. Mrs. Chun, you forged legal documents and stole over $1 million. The DA has everything she needs for multiple felony counts. The lawyer sighed. I'm advising you to accept the settlement offer. The settlement was simple. Return everything, split the estate according to the original will, and I would ask the DA not to pursue charges. My mother would have to make a formal written apology. My brothers would be barred from the family business. And if I refuse? My mother asked. Then you're looking at prison time. All 3 of you. There was a long silence. Then, finally, we accept. The day we signed the papers, I saw my mother for the first time in 7 months. She looked older, smaller somehow. She wouldn't meet my eyes. David and Michael sat beside her, radiating hostility. When it came time to sign, David threw his pen across the table. I hope you're happy, he said to me. You destroyed our family for money. I looked at him calmly.
No.
You destroyed our family when you decided I wasn't worthy of being treated as an equal. When you decided my gender made me less than. When you thought you could steal from me, and I'd just accept it. We're your brothers. You stopped being my brothers the moment you forged that will. My mother finally looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face drawn. You've disgraced us, she said in Mandarin. Your father would be ashamed. No, I replied in English. I think he'd be proud. He left me that money for a reason. He wanted me to have it. Maybe he knew I'd need it to fight you. She looked away. When it was over, when all the papers were signed and the money was transferred back to the proper accounts, I walked out of that office and stood on the sidewalk for a long moment. I felt lighter. Not happy exactly, but free. Margaret came out behind me. How are you feeling? Tired. That's fair. She smiled. You won, you know. Not just the case. You stood up for yourself. A lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of people have families who love them.
True.
But you have something better now. You have yourself. The estate was finally settled 4 months later. After legal fees and penalties and everything else, my third came to just under $900,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. The first thing I did was quit my job. The second thing was book a flight to Taiwan where my grandmother lived. She was 92, and I hadn't seen her in years. My mother had always made excuses about why I couldn't visit. I spent 2 weeks with her in her tiny apartment in Taipei. She made soup and told me stories about my grandfather, about growing up in a time when women had even fewer rights than now. Your mother, she said one evening, she was raised a certain way. She learned that women survive by attaching themselves to men, by producing sons, by playing the game. She doesn't know any other way. She tried to steal from me, Grandma. I know. And that was wrong. Very wrong. She patted my hand with her paper-thin fingers. But you broke free. You fought back. That's the difference between your generation and mine. You don't accept it anymore. It cost me my family.
No, child.
It cost them you. Big difference. I came home from Taiwan with a plan. I used part of the inheritance to invest in a small startup run by a woman I'd met at a tech conference years ago. I used another portion to establish a scholarship fund for young women pursuing business degrees. The rest I saved. But the most important thing I did was start therapy. Twice a week, I sat in a comfortable office with a woman named Dr. Reeves and unpacked 28 years of being told I wasn't enough. We talked about family dynamics, cultural expectations, internalized misogyny. We talked about grief, not just for my father, but for the family I'd thought I had and the family I'd wanted. Do you regret it? Dr. Reeves asked one day. Fighting for the inheritance?
No, but I regret that I had to.
I regret that they chose money over me. I regret that my mother would rather commit crimes than treat me as an equal to my brothers. That's a reasonable thing to regret. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just let it go. If I'd walked away. What do you think would have happened? I thought about it. I think I would have spent the rest of my life angry, diminished,
small.
I think every time I saw a mother with her daughter, or a family gathering, or a wedding where everyone was together, I would have felt that wound. I would have carried it forever. And now I'm free of them. It still hurts, but it's clean pain, you know? Not festering. 6 months after the settlement, I got a call from Michael. I almost didn't answer. Way. He sounded uncertain. It's Mike. I know. Look, I wanted to apologize. For everything. You were right. What we did was wrong. I knew it was wrong at the time, but Mom was so insistent, and David was already on board, and I went along with it. Okay. I'm not asking for forgiveness or anything. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. After everything that happened, after the lawyers and the investigation, and seeing Mom almost go to jail, I get it. We treated you horribly. Your entire life, not just with the inheritance. I closed my eyes. Why are you calling me, Michael? Because I'm ashamed. Because I think about you at every family dinner you're not at. Because I realize that we drove you away, and I'm only now understanding what we lost.
He paused.
And because I'm going to be a father. I found out yesterday. My wife is pregnant. Congratulations. We're having a girl. I felt something crack in my chest. Mike. I need to do better. I need to be better than what we grew up with. I can't raise a daughter the way Mom raised you.
I can't teach her that she's less than.
I won't do that. Then don't. I know it's too late for us. I know I destroyed any chance of a relationship with you. But I wanted you to know that you changed something. By fighting back, by refusing to accept it, you changed something. I didn't do it to change anything. I did it because I was worth fighting for. I know. That's what makes it matter. We talked for a few more minutes. He didn't ask to see me. He didn't suggest family reconciliation. He just apologized, told me about his wife and the baby, and said goodbye. I cried after I hung up, but they were different tears than before. A year after my father's death, I was having coffee with Margaret when my phone buzzed. It was an email from David. The subject line read, "Mom had a stroke." I stared at it for a long moment. Margaret noticed. "Bad news. My mother is in the hospital. Are you going to go?" I thought about it. I thought about obligation and duty and filial piety. I thought about the woman who'd raised me, who'd fed me and clothed me and sent me to school. I thought about the woman who'd forged my father's will and tried to steal my inheritance and told me I was worthless because I was born female. "No," I said finally. "I'm not going." "Do you feel guilty about that?" "A little, but I also feel okay with it." She made her choices. She chose my brothers over me, money over integrity, tradition over love. I'm allowed to choose not to forgive that. Margaret nodded. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right decision." My mother recovered. David sent me periodic updates that I didn't ask for. She was in rehab, then home with a nurse, then slowly improving.
I didn't visit.
I didn't call. I sent a card because that felt like enough. Michael sent me a photo when his daughter was born. She was tiny and wrinkled and perfect. He named her Lily. "I'm going to tell her about you," he wrote. About her aunt who stood up for herself, who fought when everyone told her to be quiet. "I want her to know that's possible." I wrote back. "Teach her she never has to fight for the bare minimum. Teach her she's worth everything from the very start." 2 years after my father's death, I started my own consulting business. I specialized in helping women navigate family businesses, inheritance disputes, estate planning. I'd learned so much through my own nightmare that I figured I might as well use it to help others. The first client who walked through my door was a woman named Sarah. She was 35, her father had just died, and her brothers were telling her she wasn't entitled to any of the family business because she'd married outside the faith. I sat across from her and said, "Tell me everything." As she talked, I saw myself 2 years earlier. The confusion, the hurt, the slow dawning realization that the people who were supposed to love you could be the ones who betrayed you the deepest. When she finished, she looked at me with desperate eyes. "Can I fight this? Is it worth it?" I thought about everything I'd been through. The legal bills, the sleepless nights, the loss of my family, the pain and anger and grief. I thought about standing in that law office while my mother refused to look at me. I thought about the months of rage and sadness and doubt. And then I thought about the moment when the money hit my account. Not because I cared about the money itself, but because it meant I'd won. I'd refused to be erased. I'd insisted on my worth, and I'd made them acknowledge it, even if they'd fought it every step of the way. I thought about the scholarship fund, about the young women who would get opportunities because I'd fought for what was mine. I thought about Michael's daughter Lily, and how maybe her life would be different because her father had seen what happened when you treated daughters as less than. I thought about the woman I'd been before all this, smaller, quieter, always trying to earn love that should have been freely given. And I thought about who I was now, stronger, clearer, free. "Yes," I told Sarah, "you can fight. And yes, it's worth it. Not for the money, though that matters. But because you're worth fighting for. Your father knew it. That's why he left you something in the first place. He wanted you to have it. But my family isn't really your family if they think you matter less because of your gender, your choices, or anything else. Family are the people who see your worth. Sometimes those are blood relatives. Sometimes they're not." She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "And Sarah? When you win, and you will win, it's going to hurt. You're going to lose people you love. You're going to question whether it was worth it. But on the other side of that pain is freedom. And freedom is worth everything. I took her case. And the next one. And the one after that. I don't talk to my mother anymore. I exchange occasional texts with Michael, usually about Lily. David and I haven't spoken since the settlement. My family, such as it was, is gone. But I built a new life. I have friends who value me. I have work that matters. I have money that I earned by refusing to accept less than I deserved. I have my freedom, my pride, and my sense of self. Some nights, I still wonder what my father would think. If he'd be proud that I fought for his wishes, or disappointed that it tore the family apart. If he'd understand why I walked away, or think I should have been more forgiving. But mostly, I don't think about it anymore. I'm too busy helping other daughters fight their own battles, win their own wars, claim their own worth. And every time one of them wins, every time a woman walks out of my office with her shoulders back and her head high, ready to demand what she deserves, I think, this is what healing looks like. Not reconciliation. Not forgiveness. Not pretending it didn't hurt. But standing up, speaking up, and refusing to disappear just because someone else wants you to. That's my inheritance. Not the money, though that helped, but the knowledge that I am worth fighting for. That I always was, even when my own family couldn't see it. And that's worth more than any amount of money they could have left me.